Tonight, taking on everything from the economic crisis to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, Barack Obama gets down to work as president and commander-in-chief. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, the battle to get his cabinet filled. Hillary Clinton finally gets confirmed as Secretary of State. But Treasury Secretary-designate Geithner runs into more flack over his failure to pay taxes. Hamas is digging new tunnels, many to smuggle weapons in from Egypt. And it's mission tuition, the unusual thing some students are doing to earn college scholarships.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening, everyone. After the ceremonies and celebrations of Inauguration Day, President Obama got down to the difficult business of running the country today. His agenda included meetings with economic and military advisors about the financial crisis and the wars, swearing in senior staffers, then freezing the pay of any of them making six figures. And tomorrow, another busy day will include issuing an executive order to close the prison at Guantanamo within a year. Also getting to work today, covering the new president, our chief White House correspondent Chip Reid. And Chip, Barack Obama is certainly not easing into this job.
Oh, no, he's not, Katie. He said he was going to hit the ground running, and he was true to his word. He spent the day racing through a jam-packed schedule of meetings and events on everything from the economy to the war in Iraq to peace in the Middle East.
President Barack Obama walked into the Oval Office at 8:35 a.m. on his first full day in the White House and spent 10 minutes alone. He read a note of welcome left by President Bush addressed 244 from 43. Then Mr. Obama and the First Lady climbed into the new heavily armored presidential limousine bound for the National Prayer Service, a tradition for new presidents since George Washington. Religious leaders of various faiths prayed for guidance in the days ahead. Hurrying back to the Oval Office, he called the leaders of Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority, pledging active engagement in the pursuit of Middle East peace. His first foreign policy order, though, was issued Tuesday night. Shortly after Mr. Obama left the reviewing stand, Defense Secretary Gates got a call ordering him to suspend military trials of the 5 suspected 9/11 conspirators held at Guantanamo Bay Prison. The order will give Mr. Obama time to decide how to proceed after he issues an order expected Thursday to close the prison. He signed orders today tightening ethics rules for government employees and gave his new staff instructions on what it means to do government service.
It's not about advantaging yourself. It's not about advancing your friends or your corporate clients. The American people are really counting on us now.
He welcomed his new White House team one by one, then did the same for 200 lucky members of the public who, after signing up on the internet, were invited to an open house.
Enjoy yourselves, we're all ready. Don't break anything.
In late afternoon, Mr. Obama turned to his top priority, meeting with his economic team to strategize on getting his $825 billion stimulus package through Congress. He then met with top military advisors to discuss his goal of getting combat troops out of Iraq within 16 months. General David Petraeus, who opposes timetables, flew overnight all the way from Afghanistan so he could attend in person.
Aides say the frenetic pace is expected to continue for the foreseeable future. They say there's too much at stake to slow down. Katie?
Chip Reid at the White House tonight. Thank you, Chip. The president's new Secretary of State is on the job. Hillary Clinton was sworn in today after the Senate confirmed her 94-2. That following a plea from Republican John McCain.
I think the message that the American people are sending us now is they want us to work together and get to work. I think we ought to let Senator Clinton, who is obviously qualified and obviously will serve, to get to work immediately.
Meanwhile, Senate Republicans delayed for 1 week a vote on the nomination of Eric Holder to be Attorney General. They want more time to question him about a number of issues, including the harsh interrogation of terror suspects. And Timothy Geithner is moving closer to confirmation as Treasury Secretary, despite continuing questions about his failure to pay some of his taxes. Cheryl Atkinson has the latest on that.
Give me come to order.
At Timothy Geithner's confirmation hearing for Treasury Secretary, some expressed strong support. I have confidence that Mr. Geithner is up to the job.
But Geithner's nomination isn't without controversy and a dose of irony. The man who will oversee the IRS claims he didn't understand all of his own tax obligations, failing to pay Social Security and Medicare taxes for parts of 4 years.
But they were unintentional. They were not intentional mistakes. They were completely unintentional.
It happened when Geithner worked for the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Workers are considered self-employed as far as paying taxes, a fact given in detailed instructions and repeatedly acknowledged by Geithner in signed paperwork. Yet Geithner paid no IMF Social Security taxes from 2001 to 2004. An IRS audit in 2006 caught the mistake, but only for 03 and 04. Geithner paid $16,000. The IRS waived penalties. Taxpayer watchdog Pete Sepp says that kind of mistake normally incurs the harshest fines.
If Mr. Geithner got a pass on the penalty, he's a very lucky man.
But what really rankled some senators is that only after Geithner knew he was President Obama's pick for Treasury Secretary did he go back and pay his Social Security taxes for 01 and 02, nearly $26,000 more.
Did that thought never cross your mind until you became a candidate for nomination as Secretary of the Treasury?
That was the first time I thought through carefully the question about whether I should go back and cover that.
Would you answer my question rather than dancing around it, please?
In this case, I made a series of mistakes, but they were not intentional mistakes. They're my responsibility.
Some of Geithner's opponents also consider him a chief architect of the failed policies that led to the bailout. But he has many supporters, Katie, and is expected to be confirmed.
Cheryl Atkinson on Capitol Hill tonight. And President Obama is anxious to get Geithner to work reviving the banking industry. Anthony Mason reports that won't be easy.
It's the most urgent financial crisis facing the new administration. Despite hundreds of billions of dollars in bailout funds, the country's biggest banks are still bleeding losses.
We're at the beginning of this process of repairing the system, not close to the end of that process, and it's going to require much more substantial action on a very dramatic scale.
Bank stocks have plunged. Look at two of the country's largest. Citigroup, which lost more than $8 billion last quarter, has seen its stock price plummet 85% over the past year. Bank of America, which has received $45 billion in bailout funds, has fallen 82%.
Most people now are of the opinion that the banking sector will owe eventually $3.3 trillion. And this is a huge amount of money.
As the recession deepens, delinquencies on mortgages, credit cards, and car loans are soaring.
For a while, it was the banking system dragging down the economy. Now it's almost like the economy dragging down the banking system.
And there were more bad numbers today. United Airlines announced another 1,000 job cuts, and eBay announced a decline in revenue for the first time this decade. Economists say the Obama administration needs to move quickly to get its massive economic stimulus package passed to stop the downward spiral.
Even with the, say, $825 billion fiscal package, we think the unemployment rate will go up to 9.5%. So it's going to get worse before it gets better.
President Obama is working on a comprehensive bank rescue package, according to Timothy Geithner. The nominee for Treasury Secretary did not give any specifics, but said it will be unveiled within the next few weeks. Katie?
Anthony Mason. Thank you, Anthony. Meanwhile, another dent for the U.S. auto industry. GM has lost the title of world sales leader to Toyota. New figures out today show GM sales last night totaled 8.5 million vehicles. Toyota's nearly 9 million. In other news, there's new concern tonight that Iran may be trying to rearm Hamas. Our David Martin learned exclusively that on Monday, an American Navy ship intercepted an Iranian chartered ship in the Red Sea and found artillery shells on board. The U.S. Navy has now asked Egypt to force the Iranians to pull into port for a more thorough inspection before being allowed to pass through the Suez Canal to the Mediterranean. The fear is that those artillery shells will be smuggled into Gaza. Alan Pizzi is there and reports that Hamas is already digging new smuggling tunnels just hours after the last Israeli forces pulled out.
Along the border where Gaza meets Egypt, the clearing up operation is in full swing. But these men aren't rebuilding their homes, they're getting back to business. the tunnel building business. One of the prime objectives of the Israeli assault on Gaza was to destroy the tunnel system Hamas used to smuggle in weapons. Israeli warplanes dropped more than 100 tons of explosives along this mile-long section.
The official name of this place is Salah ad-Din's Gate, but everyone knows it as the City of Tunnels. The ground under my feet is honeycombed with them. The Israelis claim to have destroyed as many as 300, but no one knows how many there really are. And new ones are being dug. These men say it will take them from 2 to 4 months to burrow the 500 or so yards to the other side of the Egyptian border. Any chance of the ceasefire lasting depends on Egypt stopping Hamas from smuggling in weapons. Because of an Israeli blockade, however, the tunnels are Gaza's economic lifeline too. Hamas have their own tunnels, stall owner Mohammed Atham says. Most of the others belong to merchants who bring in things for the people. And at the end of each commercial tunnel is an Egyptian businessman who splits the profits from food to clothing, household goods and electronics. A desperate economy and high profits, coupled with Hamas' stated determination to rearm, means that tunneling will remain big business, even at the risk of more airstrikes. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Gaza.
And coming up next on the CBS Evening News, the growing salmonella scare. More products made with peanuts and peanut butter are being recalled. Investigators are scouring the country for the source of a salmonella outbreak linked to peanut butter. Cases have been reported in 43 states since September, and 6 people have died. Nearly 500 have gotten sick. Priya David has the latest.
I hope I never get that again. Pass it to the quarterback.
He's healthy now, but just a few months ago, 7-year-old Christopher Meunier from Vermont was in the hospital fighting for his life.
We had absolutely no idea what was going on, never considered salmonella.
Neither did the family of 72-year-old Sherry Mae Elmer. But after the Minnesota grandmother died suddenly last month, blood tests showed the salmonella bacteria.
It shouldn't have happened. It just shouldn't have happened.
Both families have filed suit against the Peanut Corporation of America, the maker of peanut butter and peanut paste, at the center of the nationwide recall. Today, Nutrisystem joined a growing number of companies that have voluntarily recalled over 125 products that may contain contaminated peanuts. Officials say peanut butter in regular jars appears safe. The foods at risk come from industrial-sized peanut butter and the peanut additives used in snack bars, ice cream, and crackers. This is hardly the first time salmonella has sickened and scared people. You may recall last summer the tomato industry was crippled until it turned out the real culprit was jalapeno peppers. This has many wondering who's really making sure our food is safe.
For many years at FDA, drug safety had the highest priority. I think that's going to shift. Food safety, that's what's very, very important to the American people.
For now, consumers are advised to stay away from eating anything that contains peanuts. Priya David, CBS News, New York.
And as you'll recall, Senator Ted Kennedy suffered a seizure yesterday during a luncheon for President Obama. The senator, who's battling brain cancer, had just braved the frigid cold to attend the swearing-in. After a night in the hospital, Kennedy was sent home today and is said to be doing well. Coming up next, new U.S. troops taking aim at the Taliban and hoping to clear a path toward peace in Afghanistan. As we told you earlier, President Obama convened his War Council today, and they talked about his new strategy for Afghanistan, which calls for sending up to 30,000 additional U.S. troops to fight the resurgent Taliban. So far this year, 11 Americans have been killed in Afghanistan compared to 8 in Iraq. From Kabul, here's Elizabeth Palmer.
It was a cold, wet welcome for the soldiers of the 10th Mountain Division arriving in Afghanistan. This is the first wave, 3,000 strong, of the new U.S. troop buildup. Their mission is to stop the Taliban's steady advance into provinces that lie on the very outskirts of the Afghan capital, Kabul. Before they head out, they test their guns. These troops have orders to make local people feel secure so aid projects in the area can go ahead. But they know that's going to draw Taliban attacks.
If the Taliban and the bad guys want
want to pick a fight, well then, that's what we'll have to do to make sure that the people are protected.
The so-called bad guys have picked plenty of fights already, and they're getting bolder. In June, the Taliban filmed their own ambush of a convoy in Wardak that killed 3 U.S. soldiers. Then in August, after killing 10 NATO paratroopers, they paraded in uniforms stripped from the corpses, as you can see in this exclusive video obtained by CBS News.
This is the last police checkpoint on the southern outskirts of Kabul, and it's simply not safe to travel any further. Beyond, the Taliban operate freely, hunting down and killing Afghans who work for the government, aid workers, and foreigners.
Sparse police checkpoints in this rugged area are no match for them. They've closed girls' schools in the villages and set up their own Islamic courts. Dr. Rushanak Wardak is the local member of parliament, and she says the Taliban's tyranny is bad, but having more U.S. troops around to fight them will be worse.
They will attack on Taliban. Taliban will attack with them. Our security will disturb.
There's your 2 mags, huh? The newly arrived U.S. soldiers are now bracing for their first battle to convince Afghan civilians that in this case, more war is the cost of a lasting peace. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, Kabul.
While President Obama faces many challenges abroad, he has a lot on his plate here at home as well. Jeff Greenfield is our senior political correspondent. Jeff, what are the pitfalls, do you think, for his domestic agenda?
Just take one. He's staking a lot on the idea that our problems are so serious in the economy and the environment and healthcare that the public and the Congress are ready for radical change. But Congress is filled with people who've been there 35, 40 years with very strong investments in business as usual. And it's not that clear that either the Democrats are willing to abandon notions on Social Security and health care. Republicans, if they even move toward the idea of revenue enhancement, which is what we call tax increases, they'll face perhaps a primary. So there are very strong pressures, counter pressures to the idea of, oh yeah, now we can change our whole way of thinking.
But isn't there a lot of public pressure to get things done? Because even Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina told me yesterday it might be actually politically popular to come up with solutions and to compromise on some things.
Yeah, that's always great in theory until you get to the details. The one way we know that Obama seems to know how tricky this is look at how many people, from the vice president to his chief of staff to so many cabinet members, come from the Congress. He knows that dealing with them and getting them to change fundamental notions is one of the hardest things you can do. And that's just one of the pitfalls he may face.
All right, Jeff Greenfield. Jeff, thank you so much. Meanwhile, it may be that the biggest winner on Inauguration Day was J. Crew. Michelle Obama wore the company's gloves to the swearing-in. The outfits worn by daughters Malia and Sasha were specially designed by J. Crew. No, they are not available to the public. President Obama even wore a J. Crew bow tie to the inaugural balls. The company's stock was up 10% today. And coming up next, stick-to-itiveness, how a little creativity can help pay your tuition bills. Finally tonight, we all know money's tight for a lot of people and college costs are rising. So what can you do to pay your tuition? Richard Schlesinger says you'd be surprised.
How do you just get noodles? Like so many other students, Sharon Dranko was facing a sticky situation when it came time for college.
My parents were only prepared to pay like $15,000 a year, and my school's $27,000.
She's now a fashion student at Kent State University and fashioned a way to get scholarship money that it's safe to say you have to see to believe. She got $3,000 from a company that makes duct tape when she won a contest by using 134 rolls of the tape to make her high school prom dress. It weighs 50 pounds and you can hear it coming. It's more fashionable than functional.
I was just going to ask, can you dance in this?
A little bit. I can kind of move side to side.
Yeah, no slow dancing though.
No, because he couldn't even get, my date couldn't get close.
Sharon Dranko didn't just make her dress, she also made a duct tape tuxedo for her date. He got $3 grand too.
There's scholarships for a ton of strange things out there.
Stranger than this?
Not that I've heard of.
Left-handed students can get up to $1,000, skateboarders up to $5,000. And at DePaul University, there's money available for any female student who can learn to sing or play the national anthem with sincerity. So students are cashing in on whatever they can. At Southern Connecticut State University, Morgan LeHue got money from her local chapter of Tall Clubs International because she's 6 feet plus and wrote a good essay.
Now, did you ever think that your height would be an advantage?
Not really, just for basic things like grabbing stuff off of shelves.
But it was also good for $500 toward her tuition.
Is there something I can do?
No, I got it.
If nothing else, the scholarship hunt teaches valuable lessons in creativity, and in the case of Sharon Dranko's duct tape dress, sticking with or sticking to a project until it pays off. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Kent, Ohio.
And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric in New York. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.